Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail Podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail. All right, guys, episode 46, Mission Whitetail. We've got our good buddy Adam Hayes from Ohio back. We're going to do a rapid fire question with Adam Hayes today, so he's in the hot seat. Adam,
Wonderful.
yeah, what's happening, man? Let's do a season update, get everybody up to speed. I hunted this morning and came straight from the woods to here, and I should still be in the woods. We had a 24 degrees this morning. And I did not see a deer. And when I got out, I left the woods at 10 and got here at 10:30. I'm pretty close to my office. And now all my cameras are blowing up, bucks chasing does, and I should still be there, but that's okay. Duty calls at any time you get the opportunity to sit down with Adam Hayes to do whatever it takes to do that.
Yeah, I hear you. Is there like a second rut there going on?
We have so many does. Like in this, our buck doe ratio is so screwed up. I wouldn't doubt that it's not 10-1. So we get scrapes, but we get very few rubs, very few buck fights. There's just so I actually watched a 2-year-old. I could see in the edge of a food plot. And I was looking at a 4-year-old 10-point that I know very well. He was walking down a ditch bank, and there was a 2-year-old breeding a doe out in a food plot that I could see, and the 10-point just watched it and kept right on walking.
Really?
Anywhere else, if you'd been in Kansas or anywhere else, he'd have run out there and knocked that buck off and taken that doe. He was either tired of breeding or just didn't care or was going to find another doe. So what happens, so many of these does don't get bred that the rut just goes and goes and goes and goes. We'll have spotted fawns in September, and we'll have spotted fawns in July. It's nuts.
10-1.
That's my guess. I don't know. Some South Carolina biologist is going to call me and tell me I'm an idiot, but it's got to be close to that.
Those are the kind of odds I used to look for when I was trolling.
Those were the odds you needed, Hayes.
Exactly. I'm all about stacking the deck in my favor. So, I mean, yeah, I look for situations where it's 10-1 for sure.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that. Oh man, yeah. If I had to get back in the game, I might need 20-1.
Yeah, that'd be an understatement for me.
Yeah, golly, yeah. I don't want to go that route. I'm happy right where I am.
Yeah, things just came to a screeching halt here last night. We went from, highs in the 30s to highs in the 50s yesterday. And I was seeing, 20 some deer a night. And then last night was one of the slowest nights I had. I mean, everything just shut right down, and it's going to be 50 today, 50 tomorrow. We got a 2-day gun season this weekend, so that's probably not going to help things. So I'm actually probably going to go down south tomorrow and try to fill a couple doe tags and just kind of leave the home farm rest this weekend. I don't want to push anything out of here, and hopefully, a couple deer that I've been watching make it through this weekend. And we got some really good weather coming. Sunday, we got a big front, high winds, rain, big temperature drop, and then everything kind of blows out on Monday and Tuesday, and it gets really cold again. So I'm kind of banking on, I think Tuesday is the last day of the red moon right now. Yep. So, the weather pattern and the moon, the cold weather coming back around. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
Yep. So I actually did my last hunt in South Carolina this morning. Now this isn't going to air. This one won't air for a couple weeks. But I did my last hunt this morning. Jack and I go to Mexico, back to Mexico on Sunday. It's kind of a father-son trip. I got my roommate from college going with his 3 boys and his dad, and then me and Jack are going. So it's going to be a fun trip.
Same place you just went to?
Yeah, same place. Yeah, I did shoot that good one down there, man. He ended up being better than I thought. He was 160 and 6/8.
Oh, wow.
Definitely the biggest one I've killed in Mexico.
Yep.
Really, yeah, heck. He was an old deer, big bodied, big Roman nose, real mature, chocolate horns. I mean, everything. Couple inches of extra stuff on his brow tines and a kicker. So,
yeah, it looked like a beautiful buck.
Yeah, I was tickled to get him. But yeah, so we're gonna go back there and hunt until Friday, and then let's see, or we're gonna hunt till the 22nd. I think that's Friday, and then Saturday got a family Christmas trip, so I'll be out of town for that with the whole family, and then when we get back from there, our season will be over in South Carolina. So unless the Miles buck shows up in Ohio, this Mexico trip could be my last hurrah. So
I sent you a picture of the Miles buck last night.
yes, yes, you did.
All 110 inches of him.
That was the South. You came down here and stole one of my South Carolina deer and took it to Ohio.
That's a Ohio River swamp buck.
That's perfect. Oh man, yeah, that the old lease died, just one of those years. Nothing came in there. But in the past, that place has been great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I killed a 180-inch deer there just a few years ago, and I chased a 200-inch buck. Well, he wasn't 200 inches every year. I watched him and let him go for, I think, 4 seasons, and he finally got to that point where I thought he was at 200 inches. And that was the year one of the neighbors decided to buy this Great Dane and let it run loose. And I had that dog on camera more than that big deer. And he ran that buck out of there and he got killed somewhere because he's never been back. And yeah, he was a homebody. I mean, that deer never went anywhere.
And that dog ruined.
So there's been great deer there. It just, I kind of thought in the back of my mind this might happen this year because they took the whole farm out of crop rotation, put it in CRP, and the only food in there are the feeders and a couple of small food plots. So, it looks better than ever. Like I was telling you, I mean, the CRP is just, 4 foot tall and cover everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. We're going to give it one more year, like I said, and see what happens. But it's a great area. Just that big change didn't help things this year.
Yeah, food. It went too far the other way, maybe.
Yeah, for this year. But I mean, I've always been a big fan of having better cover and more cover than your neighbor to be able to hold the big deer. And I kind of think, in the long run, this will probably be the best thing because I hear it all the time talking to guys. I was just talking to Adam Crummer the other day about it, and he's kind of transitioned to where he's going for more cover, taking more of his stuff out of food plots and putting it in prairie grass type CRP cover, and kind of flipping the table, because he says the same thing that I've said for a long time. You start managing these properties to death and creating this great habitat for deer, with all this food, and you start getting to the point where you're holding, 95% of the deer herd, but not the 5% that you really want to hunt and kill, because those big, mature, old animals don't want to be around, the entire herd most of the year. Yeah. So your neighbors end up killing them because they're on the outskirts of everything. And it's just, I think it's happening a lot these days. Guys are over managing their properties, creating these, perfect deer paradises. And, there's more does, more young bucks, and the bigger ones just don't want to be around there. So.
Yeah. And, I talked to Seymour when we had him on last time. I asked him, I said, you have, being a guide and outfitter, you have probably interacted with more giant bucks, then with all of his cameras, all the years he's been outfitting, all the properties he's managed, what is synonymous with all of them? Or if you were looking for the ideal piece, what would be the first thing that popped in your mind? And he said CRP.
CRP, yep.
That was the
I agree
first thing he
100%.
said. That would be the first thing he looked for. He said it seems like every big mature Boone and Crockett, 5-year-old or better, they're associated some way with CRP.
Yeah, I agree. I've hunted everywhere a guy can between Ohio and Alberta, and it never fails. No matter where I'm at, that's where you find the big deer.
They feel comfortable hiding in that stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually going to add like a quail strip of cover around everything here at my place, because I've been sitting back here this year, just kind of taking it all in and looking at what I've done so far. And I get the feeling like it's almost like, I don't know, like an arena, because I've just got, my food plots surrounded by timber, and it just feels so open when I'm back there. And I think I need some kind of transition, around the edges to make these deer feel a little bit more comfortable to come out in the open. So I think, I've got, a big wide strip of imperial clover around the woods and everything. I think I'm going to cut all that in half and, plant the CRP and the prairie grass and create like a quail strip around the edge, just to add some more cover.
Yeah.
To help these deer break cover, in the daylight, get them out in the open. I think that's the only thing I'm missing right now.
Yeah, well, it's a honey hole. I mean, I've seen it, man. That's a sexy spot.
Yeah, be really sexy if I could kill this buck I'm after right now.
Yes, it would. Oh man, that would be good. All right,
We've
so
still got some time.
Yeah, that's right. You got plenty of time. You go all the way into January, 1st of February, don't you?
First Saturday of February.
Yeah, you got tons of time. Over a month.
Yeah.
That's plenty of time. All right, so the purpose of today's, or not the purpose, but what I wanted to do was do rapid fire questions to Adam Hayes. Sound good?
Sure.
All right, so the first question we got, if you could hunt only one state, which one would it be?
Ohio.
Ohio. And is that because you live there, or because you just think out of everywhere you've hunted, it's the best?
Both. I think being able to be close, to where you hunt makes a huge difference, obviously. And then, there's places that have more deer, Kansas, Iowa probably got higher numbers than what we have, but I don't think anybody has, better deer than we do. So, there's been some world-class deer killed in the state this year, just like every other year. Ohio's had more 300-inch deer killed than any other state, I believe. So, I mean, I think, the genetics are here. Maybe not the numbers, but the high-end bucks. So, yeah, and it's, I'm kind of partial to the Buckeye State.
Yeah, the old Buckeyes. Yeah. We're not going to go off on a football tangent.
Okay.
But I am excited about the 12-team playoff next year. I think I do not think the 4 best teams are in the playoffs this year.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I do not think
it'll put an end to all the questions and crying and everything else.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And I'm looking forward to it, because you thought the SEC won a bunch of national championships. Now that we got 12 teams, it'll probably be every single year.
Never know, man. You never know.
All right. I said we weren't going off on a tangent. All right.
As long as it's not Michigan.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, Bama's got Michigan right out the gate, so that's going to be a good game.
Bama
plays Michigan.
Bama or Georgia?
Georgia's out. Alabama beat Georgia, so
what was I thinking?
It's Michigan, Washington, Texas and Bama.
So it's Alabama and Michigan in the
Alabama,
first
Michigan.
game?
Yes,
Is it
sir.
really?
New
Oh,
Year's
yeah.
Day.
What am I thinking? Because I texted you. I hope you guys crush Michigan.
Yeah.
My dementia's kicking in early today.
You're focused on deer, brother. That's what you should be focused on, not football. All right, next question. Any hunt you really want to do, whitetail or other?
Man, if I had my choice, of doing anything, versus going after a 200-inch deer, I think I'd probably always take the deer,
Yep.
That's just my thing. So,
well, take deer out of it. What is there? Is there like a bucket list? Like, dude, if I could do one hunt, what would it be?
yeah, it was a sheep hunt, but I mean, it's just they've just taken that out of the equation with the price increases. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can't touch a sheep hunt for under 40 grand anymore.
Yeah,
so.
it's nuts.
Yeah.
3 years ago you could do Alaska, maybe not 5 years ago you could do an Alaska Dall sheep hunt for 15 to 18 grand, which is insane expensive, and I get that. But now that same place is $40,000 plus
Yeah.
for the same sheep.
Yeah. That's just out of the cards for me now.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right, next. What is your stance on these are a couple hot topic questions that are kind of buzzing around on podcasts and the internet. Stance on bait. What do you think about bait?
Well, as it stands right now, I think it's a necessary evil. You have to do it, because if you're not doing it, your neighbors are doing it and they're going to pull your deer. So, yeah, I think it's a necessary evil. I also think it plays a big part in, the quality of our deer, though. I mean, when you're able to get these deer everything they need, year round to keep them in better shape, coming out of the rut, coming out of the winter, there's definitely that aspect to it that's a positive. These deer are maintaining, healthy body sizes, by having the supplemental feeding. It definitely helps as far as inventory goes, keeping an eye on, what you have. And, there's pluses and minuses, for both sides of it. I think it's kind of taken away from, the hunting aspect of hunting, and I find myself falling into the same trap. You start counting on, your bait and your feeders and, everything to, and monitoring with cameras to tell you what's going on, and you don't have to scout as much or as hard. So I think it's really taken away from the sport in that aspect. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I think there's good and bad aspects to it. So
yeah, I agree. Don talks about that, and he's with you. He thinks that Ohio is the best state, and that if they ever did away with bait, it would be far the best state. It's a $1 state, pretty limited gun season. And yeah, but I'm not going to speak for Don where his stance is on bait and supplemental feeding, but yeah, I get that. And I get it becomes the next question is cell cameras, but a lot of guys fall into and we see that in South Carolina. You put a cell camera on bait, and when he shows up in daylight, you go in the next afternoon or the next morning, and chances are he's going to show back up again. Oversimplified, but that has changed things versus, finding sign, finding an edge, finding a funnel, and putting hours and hours and hours into hunting and scouting. But anyway, that's for everybody, to each his own there. Right on into cell cams. What do you think about those?
I love them. I mean, I've pretty much gotten rid of all my regular cameras and gone to all cell cameras, just because it's the only way that you can monitor real time. It's the only way that I can monitor bucks in other states, and know, when I need to be there and when I don't. Uh, it's kind of right there along the same lines as the baiting. There's pros and cons to it. Personally, I love them.
It keeps you from having to go in and out of the woods a lot too.
Yeah, it really
Change
does.
batteries and pull SD, or you still got to change batteries, but to pull SD cards and
Yeah, it definitely saves on your impact on your deer. As far as pressure and leaving scent behind and all that. I mean, as long as they're legal, I'm going to keep using them.
Yep. All right, one more ethical question, and we'll get off of that. What about the drone stuff? You see guys flying drones and doing like quote unquote deer surveys, seeing where your deer are bedded. They can fly over the CRP fields and actually see bucks bedded out there. They're using drones for deer recovery. What have you paid much attention to that? I mean, it's pretty unfreaking believable what these things can do.
Yeah, these new thermal drones.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something else. I don't know. Technology's here and it's here to stay. And, I think there probably is a little bit of a fair chase aspect to that when you're actually using a drone to locate a buck that you're hunting. I have no problem with using them to locate deer that you've hit. But I mean, if you're going out and flying a drone over top of a CRP field to locate a buck so you can slip in and try to kill him, I'm not good with that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
taking a little bit.
I don't think that's fair.
That's taking a little. Next thing you know, they'll be herding the deer to them.
Yeah, are they gonna start mounting crossbows to the drones so you can shoot them too?
How dare you? I thought we were going to get through a whole podcast without bringing up crossbows.
Man, I'll
Mount.
tell you what, I'll say one thing about crossbows, and that's it. If a guy wants to shoot a crossbow, it's completely fine with me. I'm all about guys getting out in the woods and getting kids involved. And I have nothing against crossbows other than the fact that I don't think they should be allowed to be used during the entire bow season, because it's not the same thing. Shooting a crossbow and shooting a longbow, or compound bow, is not the same thing. It's easier. Nobody can argue that fact that it's not easier.
Yeah.
It is. It's a gun shooting an arrow. And I think that longbow hunters, compound guys should have their own season that they can hunt before the crossbows are allowed. I mean, I'm not saying use crossbows only during gun season, but like here in Ohio, I'd love to see September and October be bow season, and then starting in November you can crossbow hunt, and then you have your gun seasons. Yeah, that's my honest opinion about it, man. I got nothing against it. If a guy wants to use it, fine, but they're not the same. They need to have separate seasons.
Yeah, I would even go a little further where the longbow or the recurve guy gets his own special season, because that's a whole different animal to the compound. And then the compound, comes in, and then the crossbow. And then, these seasons, and I'm certainly not a game warden in Ohio or anywhere else for that matter, but it seems like these seasons were all set years and years and years ago, and the seasons haven't changed based on the technology.
Right.
I mean, guys can shoot deer with a compound bow at 60 yards plus. Guys that are really good at it. Guys could, yeah, I've seen you do it. I saw you shoot a big 8-point at 60 yards. Got him. And then, these muzzle loaders now, I mean, 400 yards driving tacks. It's just a different world.
Yeah. Yeah. I put a smokeless barrel on my Thompson Center, and it's, I haven't shot it this far, but it's supposedly it's a 400 or 500-yard gun now. So, I mean, it's a one-shot rifle.
Yeah. One-shot rifle. So yeah, I think there needs to be some consideration into the seasons and how they're set up. It would help the quality of the herd. It would you know it would help the quality of the herd.
It would help the sport.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would help the sport. Yep, that's a good way to put it. All right, let's get off of that. Let's get back into hunting. Let's see here. All right, so we're going to go the 3 phases of the season, and you don't have to. You can be short answered here on them because we could spend a whole podcast on each one of these. But how do you approach early season? Like what's your key focuses right then, early season?
Just like late season, it's all about the food.
All right, so yeah, let's lump those because that was another question. Early and late season, all about food.
Yep.
And do you try to do an ambush then, or do you try to have preset then, or what do you do?
Well, if I always try to have things preset for early season, if I can, but I'm not afraid, to do a hanging hunt then, because things are changing almost constantly during early season with the food. You got the beans that are green and then they change, and the deer aren't hitting the beans as hard because the leaves have dried up. When the corn is popping, they get on that. When the acorns are dropping, they get on that. When farmers are getting into fields early and crops are coming down, they move to that. I mean, they're just constantly bouncing around. Seems like with food, things are changing more early season than late season. So it's hard to have, sets pre-hung for every possible situation. So I like to be able to watch them all summer and, hopefully, have a, ambush ready for the opener. But, then you got to deal with the change of shedding velvet, and the bucks that have been out in the beans every night all summer long. As soon as that velvet change, they could just vanish and disappear on you. So
yeah,
early season has got its its advantages. It's the changes that are going on and difficulties, but still I love early season.
Yep.
Early and deep.
And late season, like right now, late season, we're getting into late season. You've got food there at your farm that you're hunting, and I'm sure you've already got preset stands ready to go there.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Late season, it's all about the food, nothing else. So we got, every possible thing I could have available to them to draw them and to hold them. And, it's a little different though, late season here. You can't make any mistakes like you can get away with possibly early season.
Mm-hmm.
Deer have been pressured for 3 months and they're not the same animal. So not going to be getting away with marginal wins like you could possibly early season. And the deer are, stacked up, in certain spots, like on my farm, I'm having to get past 20 deer before any of the bigger deer show up in the food. So yeah, it's a different game late season.
Lots of eyeballs and noses and circling around, and and then once they do freak out, it becomes nighttime.
And there's no cover, there's no cover late season. It's amazing where early season or in November, you could be 100 yards from deer and get away with movement in the tree, but you can't get away with anything late season.
They will eyeball you. Yeah.
And this is the time of the year where the Osseo really shines. I'm telling you, man. I had a stand that I've been hunting all year right out on the edge of a plot. And once all the leaves came down, I've had deer come by, and look up at me and keep on going. And one of the better bucks I've got on the farm came by me the other night. And I mean, he looked up at me 3 different times and just flicked his tail and walked off. But I'm sitting there thinking, if this was the big one with all these deer around me, I don't know if I could actually pull off getting a shot at him. because of the movement. So, it's December and I've got probably 6 stands on this farm, but I actually went ahead and put up a new set. And I was only, I'm only 25, 30 feet from where I was before, but I'm kind of back in the timber just a little bit instead of right out on the edge, kind of back in the shadows. And I just, the story you told me about seeing the owl with the Osseo and all that, I just sitting up there, I kind of felt like an owl, back in the shadows.
The wise old owl.
Yeah, nothing could see me back in there. I was kind of messing around last night. I had half a dozen deer out in the spots where where I think deer are going to be obviously feeding when a big one comes out. And I was actually able to get away with a little movement, kind of reaching for my bow and just kind of testing the waters to see what I was going to be able to get away with. And yeah, just by moving 25 feet just back off the edge of the field and just kind of tucking back into the shadows, I feel like it's going to make a huge difference when I finally get an opportunity.
Yeah. And that, that goes into, I think the last podcast we did, we had Heath Cisco was on because we were talking specifically about late season. And we were talking about what separates good hunters from, great hunters. And one of the things that is unequivocally that all great hunters do is work ethic, right? You could have left that stand right where it was and said, it's fine. It's been here. They're used to it. You could have come up with 50 different reasons to leave it right there, but you're constantly thinking about how to make things better and not afraid to break that thing down, move it just 20 feet and rehang it. And that's effort and work. And that's what it takes.
It's those little things that make the difference, man, when it comes to crunch time.
Yep. Attention to detail. Attention to detail and work ethic.
Yep.
You could have come up with a million reasons not to move that thing, but then that was a little detail and voila, it's paying off.
Yeah. Like I said, man, nothing was picking me off. I felt like I blended in perfectly with the surroundings. I passed the test with mature, buck coming right by me at 10 yards and looking at me a few times in the tree. And, he just went on about his business. So I was getting away with, with that stand. But like I said, I don't think I could have gotten away with the movement that I needed with 20 deer in the field if a big one showed up. So yeah, just tweaking that spot a little bit, and it makes it even easier with the Lone Wolf, custom gear stuff. It's easy to tear it down and move it. And that's, you can't be afraid to do that stuff. Cause like I said, and like you said, man, it's all about the little details,
Without a doubt. All right. Next question. Let's just hit on this. We've talked about this a million times. So let's hit on it one more time. We talked early season, late season rut. Do you bounce around or do you kind of rot in one spot?
In November, I think it's all about time in the stand, obviously more than any other time of the year. So if I'm gonna, spend a bunch of time in a particular stand, November is the time to do it. It takes some experience, not only hunting experience, but experience with the properties that you're hunting to know where you need to be when deer are just cruising and moving. Picked up some great strategies from Bobby Worthington this year about that. And yeah, this was probably the first year in Illinois where I really took his advice, not only on the location, but just sitting there and waiting them out. Mm-hmm. And came so close a couple times. It was just a matter of, wind direction. But I've been still chasing a big deer in Illinois. Actually, I've seen him twice just outside of bow range. And and right underneath one of my other stands. I just couldn't get in it because of the wind. So I've done that more this year than ever before, just kind of knowing where I need to be and just sticking it out, and the only factor that changed that was wind direction for me. So
Yep.
Still got to
Yep.
play the wind.
He's good at that. That's his focus is rut. He wants to shoot a buck that's all rutted up, big necked, and he wants to hunt that end of October to Thanksgiving time frame. And he doesn't care about early season. I think he'll still do some late season stuff, but that's his deal, and he's been doing it for a long, 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 long time.
Yep, you've been successful at it, that's for sure.
For sure. Let's see. Access. Are you a door knocker or a phone caller, or is there another tactic to get lease or permission access? What has worked best for you? Like, have you actually gone up to dudes' doors and knocked on them? Like that seems to be a buzz right now, or do you try to get somebody on the phone or find a different route?
To be honest, I have not had to do that very much the last 4 or 5 years, just because I've had my proven places that I've hunted, and having, my own farm now for the last 5 years. I haven't, but the lease that you and I, kind of share down south, don't know what's going to happen with that this next year. And I kind of feel like I want to transition more to stuff closer to home. And I'd like to be able to pick up a few more farms to have, some options here close by. So something that's actually been thinking a lot about, from a landowner's perspective, is the best way to get into these spots. I mean, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think every situation is probably a little different. The best places obviously are probably the places where people haven't allowed hunting, because they're wealthier people, they don't need the money, and they don't want to deal with the headache of people on their property. But way the economy's been lately, people might be looking for ways to cover their property taxes. So I think you're probably dealing with a different type of person that maybe money might influence them, money might not influence them. And how do you get a person to allow you to hunt their farm if they're not really interested in the money from a lease? And I think what I'm going to be trying here soon is, when I figure out the people that I want to go after, is probably starting with a letter, a personalized letter, and just mail it to them locally, letting them know I'm a local guy, here in the same town, and give them a little bit of history on myself. And, maybe if they want to, go online and kind of look at what I'm doing, just to see that it's legitimate. But man, that's the toughest part of it anymore, is being able to get access to good property. And it's going to take, it's going to take some different strategies, just like hunting big deer. I mean, it's not a one size fits all. So I really don't know, but I mean, I think that's what I'm going to try. And I definitely think out of season, showing up somebody's property right before hunting season is not the time to do it.
No.
Nope. I think, January, February, March, reaching out to them with a letter, maybe following up with a letter, and then maybe stopping by, to try to meet them in person,
Yeah.
Because then you got kind of an icebreaker, hey, I mailed you a letter a couple months ago.
Excuse me.
Just kind of following up with it, so you're not kind of going in cold. So I think that's going to be my approach this year with a few pieces.
Yep. Well, that's good. Yeah, the letter is something out of the box. You hear about guys calling all the time, and guys actually running around and knocking on doors, and the letter is definitely. I mean, I'm trying to think the last time I got a handwritten letter from somebody. I don't, man, I can't remember. I don't know.
if you think about it, man, we all get junk mail, but when you get a letter that's handwritten, the address and the return address on it is handwritten, and if it happens to be from somebody that's a neighbor of yours, close by, I mean, I'm definitely opening that to see what the hell that's all about.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a check.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe get one of those envelopes with the window and put a fake check in the front of it.
Yeah. Or just mail them a blank check, Hayes, and just put on there whatever you think this property is worth. Here's the check.
Fill
just
it
fill
out.
out the amount.
That right there might be the golden ticket.
That might be, but I would have it hooked up to Shannon's account or Natalie's account before I would have it hooked up to mine.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be onto something there.
Yeah, that's a
Send them a blank check.
Ooh. All right. Moving right along. All right. Yep. This may kind of parlay with what we just talked about, but you got a little over a month, I guess, left of hunting season. As soon as the season's over, the hunting season, obviously, we're working at this all year long. But what do you start doing as soon as the actual physical deer season is over? What do you start doing then?
Yeah, the last few years, I think it's been really important to keep the food available for the deer, because I want the bucks on my farm and the places that I'm hunting to come into the antler growth season in as best shape as possible. So I maintain my feeding programs, even though season's over with, that's at the top of the list, get the minerals out so that they can start hitting that stuff as soon as possible. Shed hunting, obviously, to see what has survived. And it's such a great time to get in the woods and take a look at everything to see what you might have missed. Because even though I do a lot of scouting during season, there's some places that I don't go into, that you don't want to mess with and bump deer out of. And I mean, as soon as season's over with, I'm going to make a trip to Illinois. I'm going to hopefully have some new properties here at home to look at, but I really want to spend some time in the woods looking at everything that time of the year, see where the signs at, do some shed hunting and just, it's an open book that time of the year, man. You can see everything that happened, what was going on, what the deer were doing. So yeah, that's kind of my list of to do for end of season.
Yep, that sounds good. All right. This is kind of getting off topic a little bit. Biggest mistake guys make hunting a particular buck thereafter. What do you see as the biggest mistake you make or guys make that you talk to when they're hunting one particular deer?
And I've always said, I think the hardest part of hunting mature deer is actually not hunting them until things are lined up and you got the deck stacked in your favor. I think most guys overhunt their deer.
Mm-hmm.
We pressure them too much and they end up, I think the deer end up picking up on a little something here or there and end up patterning you. But, my whole tactic, if that's what you want to call it, over the last 20 or 30 years has been, finding a big deer, figuring out the best place to kill him through scouting, finding that weak spot where I know I can get within bow range of him while he's using the wind to his advantage, and then waiting until I have multiple factors lining up that are going to increase the chances of that deer moving during daylight before I'll go in. I mean, there's no sense in going through all this work and then diving in before everything's lined up, because every time you go in and you don't get it done, the game just keeps getting tougher and tougher. So my ultimate goal is to try to kill that buck the first time I go in. And, of all the deer I've killed, the majority of them were killed the first time I hunted them because, I don't go in and blow that area up. I wait for everything to line up, And I'm talking about the wind, the moon, and the weather.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and normally in that order. I know a lot of guys are gonna say, "Man, you're nuts. The weather is the most important thing," and sometimes it is. You know, sometimes the weather is the key. But I've killed a lot of big deer when the weather wasn't perfect. You
Yeah, well,
know,
that last
it was
200 you killed, it was 75 degrees in
yeah, it
November.
was freaking almost 80 degrees out first week of November in Kansas, and no reason for that buck to be up moving 2 hours before dark. And that's not the only deer that I've killed or seen moving when conditions weren't right. The biggest deer I killed in Ohio, that deer, the first time I laid eyes on him, I didn't kill him that night, but we had like 40-mile-an-hour winds that night. Nothing was moving. And I basically went out and got up in a tree in the middle of this field, just mainly for observation. And right at dusk, this buck comes hauling ass out of this thicket, runs right out into the middle of the field, and starts feeding.
Huh.
He knew it wasn't safe, around the edges where, there might be hunting pressure. So he just came busting ass out of the thicket, ran out into the middle of the field where he could see, for 200 yards, 360 degrees, and then started feeding.
I'll be dang.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen big deer move way too much when weather wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
But I think it's all about, like I said, multiple factors. When you can get the good wind for the buck you're hunting, so he's comfortable to move, you get, the right moon, red moon with that, gravitational pull, give them an extra nudge to move a little bit earlier. Then you throw a good weather pattern on top of that. It's just stacking a deck.
Sure.
Any of those factors can get a deer up and moving, but I think it's when you start combining good wind, good moon, good weather. You get 2 or 3 of those on the same night. That's the perfect storm for killing a big deer.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what I'm looking for.
All right. Let's see. All right. We got a couple more. Got 3 more. Any lessons you have learned this season or anything that you've kind of picked on to add to your trick bag?
One lesson I did learn is not to leave the Midwest the last week of October, first week in November. I was in Alberta. I was in Alberta for those 10 days and never saw an antler from the tree. And, every single one of my cameras back here at home in Illinois blowing up, big deer running everywhere. All the bucks, that I've been watching all year are breaking daylight. And just, what, that 2-week period is probably the best time to be in the Midwest. Had no business being up in Alberta, need to be up there early or late, but not at prime time in the Midwest.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I would say, I know this is an Adam Hayes question, but I would say the thing that I picked up, and I swear we talk about this guy on every single podcast we do, is the Bobby Worthington funnel. The buck that I killed in Kentucky was in a super tight funnel. The buck I killed in Kansas actually moved from where I was hunting to. Have you ever walked that? He calls it the salt. It's on Soldier. It's called the Salt Hole. Is that what it's called? The Salt Hole. Anyway, it's one of those soldier pieces. And basically there was nobody. It was 1,200 acres. It's broken up. There's 300 here, 200 there. It's broken up into different parcels. And he said, nobody's hunting over there. If you're not getting any daylight pictures or nothing's happening where you're hunting, go over and walk that piece. And man, I walked in there and there was a big bluff, a big creek that ran through the back of it, incredible access. And you popped up out of that creek and it was just a funnel between a big field edge. And it looked like Freddy Krueger had been through there ripping up cedar trees and scrapes every 5 feet. And it was all in that pinch. And I was like, I'm moving here tomorrow. So we went in there the next afternoon and got hung. But again, and my plan was to rot right there. As long as we had a north wind blowing off that bluff, I was going to sneak in on the riverside or the creek side and pop up in that funnel and just stay right there. And so that for me, that was the lesson. I used to bounce around a lot during the rut, bounce and bounce and bounce and look for fresh sign. But this year opened my eyes to sitting in that spot that, the long range travel corridor that they got to be pinched down and come through. So that for me, that was the big takeaway this year. I mean, heck, I'm 48 years old and been doing this since I was 15, basically, since I could drive. And it's amazing if you'll keep an open mind and kind of check the ego a little bit when you're around. I'll call Bobby an old timer, but guys that have been doing this for longer than me and you have and been really successful at it, you can pick up some stuff.
Yeah. And you can learn stuff from younger guys too. I mean, I think that's probably the key to the whole thing is you've got to keep an open mind no matter what it is, because you never know when you might pick up a little piece to the puzzle that can help you in a certain situation. But I mean, the more knowledge you can gather, the better, I think, the better hunter it's going to make you. And it might be something that you don't use for a few years, but yeah, once you kind of think you know it all, and there's nothing else you need to learn and you got it all figured out, yeah, that's when you get your butt handed to you.
That's the kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. The younger guys too. It seems like every time I hear about somebody killing a big deer, I want to know down to the nth degree how it went down. How'd you do it? Where'd you find him? Some of it's luck. Oh, heck, I didn't even know he was there. He came strolling through there, and I was in my climber, and, I just climbed up 20 minutes before it. He walked right by me, and I shot him. Okay, well, there could be something to pick up there, but a guy that kills a big deer on purpose, I want to hear from A to Z how he did it.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Never know when you might pick up that little pearl.
That's it. All right. Last two, Mr. Hayes. Anything new coming with the Moon Guide? I saw your social media post with the ASIO gift card about anybody that had ideas on the Moon Guide app of what may make it better or what they'd like to see. But any updates there? Anything new going on or that you can disclose for 2024?
Yeah, I spent a couple hours last night going through emails. I was surprised how many emails I got in response to that question. And it was kind of interesting, some of the stuff I got. But the two keys, I think that the two things I read more than anything else was guys wanted to see extended forecasts beyond 3 days, which I didn't realize was that important. But then I started thinking about it. I'm always, looking at the weather beyond 3 days, because like I said, the next 3 days around home is going to be crap, with east winds and warm temperatures. But out at 5 and 6 days, I know that there's a, serious cold front coming in after some wind and rain. So that was something that I really had never dawned on me before, how important it is. So going to look at doing more than a 3-day extended forecast. And then the number one topic that guys wanted to see was they want alerts sent to their phone. They want to know when the red moon is coming up. They want to know what the barometric pressure, is going to be like, and the wind, and when everything's, coming up where, it's going to be prime, to hunt. They would like an alert for it. And we'd actually already been talking about doing that. I'm thinking to myself, if we go by everybody's zip code and we already have the moon information, we know when it's going to be good, when it's going to be your best morning hunts, your best evening hunts, the days when it's going to be best in November to sit all day or maybe hunt that window from 10 to 2 midday, when things are going to be happening midday. And then the other factors, the wind direction, and the barometer, or really any weather pattern that's going to increase deer activity. If you got a cold front, if you got barometric pressure that's rising, up 29, 30 points, things that are really going to increase activity, and be able to give a guy an alert 2 or 3 days prior and say, look, everything's lining up here for next Monday. You really need to be thinking about getting out there and getting in your A spot, because things are lining up, man, and things should be moving. So we're in the process of creating that right now.
That sparked something. I wonder if there would be a way that a guy could kind of put in or log in some information that like okay, he needs his spot. He needs a west wind to hunt his spot. And so that goes into his alert profile. And then when he's got that rising barometer, the red moon, the drop in temperatures, and that west wind for him, it's like, this is your platinum day, brother. You got to have a west wind, and you got one coming with everything else lined in there. I don't know how hard that would be, but
that might be a cool way to do it. So you have a list of things. I want whenever I get a red moon for the evenings with a northwest wind, and the barometer is above 29 points, or the temperature is going to be dropping, more than 10 degrees, whatever the criteria that I'm looking for, and I check those boxes. Whenever that's getting ready to happen in the next 4 to 5 days, I get an alert.
Yeah, that would be, that'd be really, and because a lot of guys know what they want. You could have a general one, for guys that don't know exactly what they need, and then you could have it real specific to where, hey, I know this is what I need. This is what the deer like to move around here when the temperature is 5 degrees below normal, and so on. And then bam, they get their alert.
Yep,
that'd be pretty slick.
Yeah.
Call that the miles app section of the moon dial. I like it. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. The Osseo alert.
Yes. Oh yeah. It could, the owl could fly up there first. Yeah. It's brought to you by woo, 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 woo. And then it could boom. It could go. That could be the alert. Instead of a bell, it could be the owl.
The owl. Yeah.
All right.
It's a great idea.
Last question, old boy.
I wish I could make that sound.
Which sound?
That owl call.
Oh, I can't either. There's guys that can do it. I got turkey hunting buddies that, man, they call with their mouths. It's incredible. All right, last one. What's your show schedule looking like this off season? You going to any? Where can guys come and see you or visit you or talk to you? What you got cooking?
The big thing for me this winter, late winter, is going to be the Harrisburg show.
Harrisburg.
Yeah, I'll be over there with same building with you guys. Yeah, I got a feeling, since I'm going to be doing that show on my own, that's probably going to be the only one I'll be doing, because I'll probably be ready to throw in the towel after 9 days working that show by myself. But yeah, it's been a while since I've been over there, but I'm going to do that, and we'll see what else pops up. I mean, you guys are probably going to be coming to Columbus, right?
Yep, we'll be in Columbus. We got 19 this year.
19
shows. Yeah, wow. We're going to be all over. Rendell Eric's going to be show manager this year. So, and I'm going to go to as many of them as I can. I'll be in Harrisburg for the first part, and then I've got to come home for an event. I'll be there for at least the first 5 days in Harrisburg, but then going to Iowa Deer Classic, we'll be in Columbus, Indiana, as many of them as I can get to.
You ought to have Rendell get a hold of me so that can get on the schedule for the Columbus show.
Yeah, I think he's already got it booked.
No, I mean for with me.
Oh yeah. I will. I'll get
spend some time in the booth.
Yep, I'll get him to reach out to you. So guys can come check you out at Harrisburg, and then definitely Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I know you got a lot going on, including going to kill that big deer. So have a good afternoon. Keep us posted. And man, as always, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the invite.